This video contains chapters. If you click on the little playhead down below, you'll be able to sort through them. I recommend using them if you need to go back and check something. Yo, what's up guys? It's Babyline122 here with an iOS optimization guide. So I play on an iPad Pro M4, as you guys know. iPad Pro M4 2024 at 120 FPS. So in this guide, I'm going to talk about iPhones and iPads, of course, running iOS. I don't know who is using an iPhone 7 with Android, but anyways, we're going to start here today with Fortnite settings, of course. So, of course, the mobile frame rate, you're going to want that on the highest you can possibly display. The highest I can possibly display here is 120 FPS because I'm on an iPad Pro. But if you're on an iPhone Pro model, or if you're also on an iPad Pro, let's say M1, M2, M4, then you will also have 120 FPS. Normal model iPhones and iPads do not have 120. The iPad Air does not have 120. The iPad Mini does not have 120. Only the Pro models, because they come with Pro Motion. So for the settings, we're obviously going to have them on low. For 3D res, I recommend using 60% because it's a good median, but you can use 75 or 50 or whatever you feel looks good and also gets you good FPS. Some people even play at 100%. I only recommend 100% for devices that are capped at 60 FPS. So iPhone 13, 14, 15, and 16. The iPhone 12, I actually recommend putting it a bit lower, like at 90 or 80, because the iPhone 12 is an older chip. For texture quality, low. Pre-downloaded cosmetic textures, I actually recommend you have this on. I just do not have this on because I've had storage, and also I don't really have the time to download it right now. If you can download cosmetic textures, I recommend downloading them if you have the storage. It's good to have them because it gives you lower, since your device is not constantly using its network resources to download cosmetic textures. So let's say you're in a game, you're fighting someone, they're using a skin, it's not downloaded, the game has to go grab that skin, and that uses network resources. You're going to want to have that on so that way you have a lower packet loss, and overall the game will feel smoother because it can just grab straight from the storage. Allow low power mode, you're always going to want to have that off because, well, you don't want the game to go into low power mode. Low power mode caps the frame rate at 60 and lowers the 3D resolution down, so it's not good to have a low power mode on. And the reports performance stats, I recommend having this disabled because reporting performance stats takes up CPU time, and so that's all the game settings I recommend changing in terms of FPS. Everything else doesn't really affect FPS that much, like HUD settings, that doesn't affect FPS at all. That would all be a placebo effect. Alright, now time for iOS settings. So to start, I want to go here to iPad storage. So we're going to go ahead, just look through your apps. If you have anything you don't really use that much, like let's say I don't play Brawl Stars at all, I'm going to delete that. And I don't really play Clash of Clans that much anymore, so I can delete that too. You want to have your storage on your device to be at least like half or maybe a little bit more. I'd say have at least 20 to 30 gigabytes free because the game needs that for its swap space. Swap space is when the game swaps from the RAM to the storage and the storage to the RAM, because once the game runs out of RAM, it needs to go into the storage. It isn't used a lot on iOS because iOS has really good memory management, but when you're playing Fortnite, it's a high intensity game, and Fortnite isn't really optimized when it comes to RAM, so you're going to want to have some storage free for that swap space, or else it has nothing to swap to. It's also good to have that for updates, and of course anything other than that, like the cache and the temp file within the game that the game needs to run. Alright, next up for some general tips. For if you go to accessibility, go to motion and turn on reduce motion. I recommend having reduce motion on because it just makes all the animations a lot smoother and doesn't give you the parallax effect. It's better to have on because if you think about it, reduce motion, it's gonna take up less CPU time because it's really just a fade instead of that weird like whole screen effect. And it also helps a lot when you accidentally swipe out of the game while playing, because then it's quick. You just swipe back in, it fades. It's not the whole animation, because Apple animations are actually really long compared to Android. On Android, it's quick, instant. Also, limit frame rate, never have this on if you're on a 120 FPS device. I've seen people turn on limit frame rate to try and help their battery life, but it's not worth it. You want the 120 FPS. You want as much FPS as you can obtain. Another tip, mainly if you play on phones. On iPads, you probably don't need this, but it actually can help performance to have guided access. So by turning guided access on while you're in a game, all you have to do is triple click the top button or your power button on your device, and it goes into guided access. Guided access doesn't allow the iPad to enter the home screen or control center or anything. You cannot leave the game you're playing. It helps a lot, especially when you're like just trying to play on a phone and you keep on swiping out because you have buttons on the top, on the bottom. There's very limited screen on a phone, especially on like the mini phones. If you don't use guided access, you're cooked. I recommend using guided access all of the time. All right, next up, focus modes. Focus modes can help a lot actually with performance. I've seen sometimes when you only set the 2 apps in your focus to Fortnite, or let's say you have like Discord or Prism Live for me, because I live stream with my Fortnite focus mode. And then for the lock screens, you're going to want to set the default lock screen or whatever lock screen you really want. It doesn't really matter about the lock screen. But for the home screen, you're going to only want to put Fortnite and whatever other app you plan to use. You only want to have Fortnite and you want to have all notifications off, and you basically want everything off except for Fortnite with your focus mode. I see this actually give me more performance sometimes, and also it helps a lot when I'm streaming because I don't want any notifications. So if you're a content creator or you just want to get more FPS, I feel like a focus mode could help a lot. So here I have a Fortnite focus with just Fortnite and Prism Live. Other tips, I recommend turning off notifications for all of your apps, because notifications actually mean that the app is running in the background constantly to check for notifications and show them up. You also want to turn off background refresh for some of your apps. I recommend turning off background refresh for apps that you don't use a lot. So like, let's say you don't use apps like Translate a lot unless you're actively translating something in the moment. So you don't want background refresh on because it doesn't need to always be refreshed. And then also for games, and basically any app really, I recommend turning off Apple Intelligence and Siri. By turning this off, it means that it's not listening to what you do. So with Apple Intelligence is constantly checking where you press and the things you are doing within an app. By turning off Apple Intelligence, it helps a lot because then that's not constantly happening. Apple Intelligence is not constantly checking your screen, and if you turn this off for every app, that means Apple Intelligence is not running at all. I recommend not even using Apple Intelligence, to be honest, because it's really rudimentary and it just ends up making performance way worse. And anything really related to your privacy, like any data collection within your iPad or iPhone, I recommend turning off. Like in tracking, turn off all apps that are tracking you. For location services, turn it off. You don't need location services. And basically anything that could run in the background. So like local network, microphone, all that stuff, you don't really need that if all you do is play Fortnite or watch YouTube on your phone. You don't need all of that running in the background constantly. It will affect your performance. Another thing I also recommend, always update your iPad or iPhone to the latest iOS version. Obviously, this is something everyone really knows. If you're on a jailbroken device, obviously you cannot update. Or if you're on Troll Store, or if you're on a Troll Store enabled device, you cannot update. So on those devices, stay. If you never jailbreak your device, or you're using a method to install Fortnite that doesn't require a specific iOS version, I recommend updating like iPadOS 18.2. So previously iOS 18 and other iOS versions, they ran Fortnite really bad, and there were some issues where basically there was memory leaks within the game. But now on iPadOS 18.2, I recommend everyone update that can update, because man, is the performance amazing. So now I'm getting a pretty much consistent 120 FPS in the game at all times. And also it helps a lot with your background processes. So it helps a lot with ping. So game mode actually optimizes your network performance. It stops iCloud sync and a lot of other processes going on in the background that involve your network in order to give the game better ping, better latency. And also game mode helps a lot with FPS because it locks the device to 120 hertz. It does not let it go below or above. And even if you're not reaching 120 FPS within Fortnite, like let's say you're in a stacked endgame, it'll still be at 120 hertz. It just won't be displaying it because you're not getting 120 FPS of the game. But it's better to have 120 hertz because usually what iPads do is they'll go down to 76 instead of 90 or 100. They'll go straight down to 76 and you won't be getting good frame rates. Whereas with game mode, you're at 120, but you're getting 90 FPS or you're getting 80 FPS or you're getting 100. It's basically like if you're on an Android device. So for some app recommendations too, I recommend that you guys set up what is known as NextDNS. So let's go to the App Store and set this up together. I deleted this just so I could set it up for this video. So NextDNS is basically a DNS service that helps your iPad a lot when it comes to ping, because it's a lot quicker than other DNS services in terms of grabbing something from an IP address. So basically what NextDNS does is when you search something on, let's say, Google, when you type in google.com, google.com is an IP address. So your device doesn't really know where to go. That's what a DNS is for. So what NextDNS does is it's a much faster DNS than any other DNS that you can find, like Google's or even Cloudflare's. But what you need to do here is for NextDNS, enable, open settings, go to general, VPN and device management, DNS, and turn on NextDNS. Then it'll be enabled. You can go to settings here and add whatever you need to add. Let's say you have a custom configuration. NextDNS actually blocks ads, trackers, and malicious content. So if you want to turn that on, just go to their site and you can use a custom configuration that I always recommend having this on because it really helps for games like Minecraft. I noticed my ping was a lot better after using NextDNS for some reason. And I also noticed that my searches become a lot faster whenever I'm searching something on Safari, let's say for a video. So I believe it will help your Fortnite ping a lot, and I recommend you install this app. It doesn't run in the background per se, it just only runs when you search something or when you're using your internet, and it's not going to affect your FPS at all because your device is already using a DNS. This is just a different DNS. That's all I recommend for software. I don't really recommend using VPNs at all. I've seen some people say that it could help your latency sometimes, but it's not really worth it in my opinion. Like you shouldn't be paying for a VPN just to try and get better ping. Your money is much better spent on something like an Ethernet cable. An Ethernet cable lowers your latency by a lot. I recommend it, especially if you're on a tablet. On a phone, you don't really need the Ethernet cable because, well, you're on a phone. Another hardware thing I recommend is using a cooler. If you're on a phone or an iPad, I recommend using a cooler. A really good one I recommend is Black Shark coolers, I think they're called, or you can use a Razer one. There's a lot of options there. I don't really know exactly which options are the best. You're gonna have to find a different video for that one, but I'll put some links in the description that I think are pretty good. I recommend on phones to get a MagSafe cooler because the MagSafe coolers actually help a lot more versus other coolers. And if you can really blow your money on it, get the Razer cooler for iPhone. It's MagSafe and it works really, really well from what I've seen. The Razer cooler is probably the best one for mobile. That's all I have to say for today's video in terms of optimization and stuff. Yeah, that's about it. See you guys. 13.